I set out in the United Nations after the Prime Minister spoke to the country about recognition that we would move to recognition unless we saw a ceasefire in Gaza and unless we saw steps towards a new process for peace in the region. And the assessment that we are making at this time is that it does look like a ceasefire is unlikely following the attack by Israel on Qatar a few days ago. And if we look at the West Bank, the decision to move forward with the E1 expansion of settler homes runs a coach and horses through the prospects of two states. And so for all of those reasons, alongside France, of course, Belgium, Australia and Canada, the Prime Minister will make a statement later on today.
That does place all the weight of expectation, though, on Israel. You're not placing any expectations on Hamas to release the hostages they have. And many in the Jewish community say, you are rewarding acts of terrorism here.
Hamas is a proscribed organisation. They have been subject to 3 rounds of sanctions since October the 7th. 23 of their leaders are under those sanctions with asset bans also. There can be no place for Hamas in Gaza. But let us not confuse the Palestinian people with Hamas. And that is why we continue to support the reform of the Palestinian Authority. President Abbas was with the Prime Minister just a few weeks ago. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the Palestinian Authority. And it's important that we hold out for 2 states.
But Hamas has said that recognition of Palestine is one of the fruits of October 7th. You are delivering them one of the fruits, one of their gifts.
Hamas is a repugnant, proscribed organisation
and you're giving them one of
their
gifts.
Release those hostages.
But you're not making the release of hostages a condition.
It's important to emphasise that at this time it is important that we move towards a ceasefire and we move towards peace, and that it can't be right to say to Palestinian children looking to their future that Hamas should have a veto on the prospects of them having a Palestinian state. And that's why the Prime Minister will make a sober assessment later on today.
But what's the actual plan here? Aside from just a big statement coming out saying we recognise a Palestinian state, how does that actually stop bombs being dropped on Palestinian children in the Gaza Strip?
There are 147 countries at this point in time that recognise a Palestinian state.
And that doesn't seem to have stopped.
If Britain moves in that direction alongside Belgium, France, Australia, Canada and others, it is to say that we want to see a Palestinian state alongside, along the lines of 1967 borders, a shared prospect of Jerusalem, Jordan having custodianship of the holy sites for the Muslim community in Jerusalem, but most importantly, the Palestinian cause and the British desire following the Balfour Declaration 108 years ago was not just for a homeland for the Jewish people, it was also to preserve the rights and religious freedoms of the Palestinian people as well.
There are many other nations that have recognised a Palestinian state. The UK is moving alongside with them today. But Israel has shown time and time again they care not for grandstanding by other nations. They're simply not going to pay any attention to this, are they?
The scenes of starvation and horror in Gaza are wholly unacceptable. And that's why the UK, under our leadership, has committed over £250 million worth of aid, particularly aid for UK Med, so that there are medical supplies for those who are injured and harmed. But it's important that those hostages come out, and it's important that we get to a ceasefire. I abhor the breach of Qatar's sovereignty, which has set back the case for that ceasefire. And I think it's wrong to move forward with the E1 settlement expansion in the West Bank that runs a coach and horses through the prospect of a 2-state solution and splits up Bedouins who are currently living there.
You say it's important to get those hostages out, but one Jewish community leader has said there is a sense of being let down. Betrayal wouldn't be too strong of a word. Families of the hostages say you and the UK government is making it harder to get their family members released. What do you say to those people?
just in the last few days, we've also seen hostage families deeply alarmed to see the prospect of a ceasefire set back by this attack in Qatar. All of us want a ceasefire. All of us want to see a process. All of us want to bring peace. And none of us want to see this offensive into Gaza City, which sets back the cause for peace and will only bring more hardship, more bloodshed, more pain.
There have been some polls that say the majority of people don't want to see the recognition of the Palestinian state without conditions placed upon Hamas. Are you worried here that you're out of step with the British public? Or, I mean, there are some concerns here that actually this isn't really about being in step with the British public. This isn't just about placing pressure on Israel. This is something to do with domestic politics and you playing to your own MPs.
Hamas remains a proscribed organisation. Hamas remains a country subject to, a violent terrorist cell subject to 3 rounds of sanctions, and its leaders sanctioned, and there probably will be more in the coming weeks and months. Asset freezes, travel bans. Of course, there can be no place for Hamas, and Gaza has to be a demilitarised zone. But we have to stand up for moderate views within the Palestinian family, and that's why we continue to support reform of the Palestinian Authority.
That's all really good, but that's not the question I asked. The question was, is this more about playing to domestic politics and your own MPs who are very annoyed with the government's handling of the war in Gaza?
This is about maintaining a position that successive UK governments have had, and that is the belief in a two-state solution, and standing up to the violence and the expansion and the refusal to move to a ceasefire that the UK government believes we need.
Just some quick ones on the details, because you were the former foreign secretary. We're moving to recognition, but what will it be called? You know, at the moment, the official UK government calls it the occupied Palestinian territories. Are you going to rename how the government refers to Palestine now?
147 countries have recognised a Palestinian state. It is a process. It does not complete from one day to the next. We will be joining another 147 countries, and it will be along the lines of the Oslo Peace Accords and the 1967 borders.
Great, but will we come up with a new name for it? Little details then, like, you know, the representative of the UK, Ambassador Zomlot, will he now become a full ambassador? Will we have a full ambassador to Palestine in Israel?
I'd refer you to the Montevideo Convention, which establishes the circumstances in which a state is recognised. It's a very well understood convention.
Well, explain
it's a
that now
very
for our
well
viewers.
understood process. Have a look at it.
Explain it quickly. Just those simple things for our viewers. Will there be an actual ambassador to Palestine in Israel?
We already have a consul general that is based in East Jerusalem. That consul general will remain. There is no need to move from one thing to the next. You make an assessment, and largely that assessment will be based on the reforms that we are working with the Palestinian Authority on. It's important to say that the decision to recognise is recognising a state, not recognising a particular government.
Okay, just some quick ones now on other stories of the day. Look, Keir Starmer has written in The Sun today warning about foreign billionaires influencing our government. I mean, he's really referring to Elon Musk, isn't he here? Do you want to condemn Elon Musk and his actions on Twitter over the last few days?
I am concerned at the online media space in which algorithms seem to be cementing division in our society. That's why we introduced the Online Harms Act. That's why Ofcom as a regulator can act if they need to. I believe, of course, in patriotic values, in the British flag, in standing up for our country. But we must distinguish between that and hate and an ethno-nationalism that drives us toward division.
Okay, and two last ones. We've seen Russian incursions into NATO airspace. What's your message to Russia? How do you think we should be responding?
Well, as typhoons fly over the eastern flank in support of our Polish, Romanian and Estonian friends, we will stand up to Putin's imperialism. NATO's integrity will be maintained. It was important to have an Article 4 meeting that Poland calls, and we will stand up to this Russian incursion and aggression.
And lastly, what I imagine you were hoping to spend all day talking about, you're now the Justice Secretary. You're now announcing new measures for what you want people to be equipped with in prisons. What are you announcing, and why is it so important?
We saw a horrific attack by the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber in HMP Franklin a few months ago, in which prison officers serving our country, keeping us safe, were horribly, horribly attacked and assaulted. And for that reason, I've announced extra body armour for our prison officers and the use of tasers that can be used in high secure settings. I was in Belmarsh just a few days ago. It's an extra £15 million worth of kit. We will do everything we can to support our prison officers at this time.
Is there not a risk here of upping the ante and almost militarising what is already, or what already can be, quite a hostile environment within prisons?
When we came to government back in July, we inherited a situation in which violence was up, drug use was up, self-harm was up, and the government had only found 500 extra prison places. We've sought to deal with that. We've had 2,500 just in the last year. But that is why we have to continue to support our prison officers at this time. They are required to do a very important job on behalf of our country.
David Lammy, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.